I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. There are 13 foods sitting in my basement right now that I've never posted about on social media, never mentioned in prepper forums, and honestly, I've actively avoided talking about with other preppers in my local group. And there's a very good reason for that. These aren't your typical prepper foods. You won't find them on those big survival blogs or in those fancy videos with people in tactical gear. But during the last 3 major supply chain disruptions, while everyone else was scrambling for the same stuff, I walked into stores and grabbed these items without a single person competing with me. The 9th item on this list has been sitting fully stocked at my local grocery store for 2 years straight. Nobody touches it. And it has more protein per dollar than anything in the prepper community's favorite list. When I tell you about the 5th one, you're going to kick yourself for not thinking of it sooner. It's been used by sailors for 400 years, costs almost nothing, and the shelf life is so long that scientists literally cannot measure when it expires. But here's the thing. Most preppers are trapped in an echo chamber. We all watch the same content, read the same material, and end up buying identical supplies. So when a real crisis hits, what vanishes first? Exactly the stuff everyone recommends. In March 2020, I watched rice disappear in 2 hours at my local warehouse store. Pasta was gone by noon. Canned soup didn't last a day, but every single food I'm about to share with you was still sitting there fully stocked 3 days later. The first one is going to make some of you uncomfortable, but I don't care because this might be the most overlooked survival food in existence. Shelf-stable lard, not the refrigerated stuff. I'm talking about the rendered hydrogenated lard that comes in boxes on the shelf. Now, before you freak out about health, let me hit you with some reality. In a survival situation, your biggest enemy isn't cholesterol, it's calorie deficiency. And lard provides more calories per ounce than almost any other food you can store. 1 tablespoon has 115 calories of pure energy. I was reading old pioneer journals last year, actual diaries from people crossing the Oregon Trail. You know what they relied on more than anything else? Lard. It kept them alive through winter. It provided the fat their bodies desperately needed, and it lasted the entire journey without refrigeration. I tested this myself. I bought a box of shelf-stable lard 3 years ago and left it in my garage. Summers here hit 95 degrees. Winters dropped to 20. Last month I opened it. Perfect condition. No rancid smell, no discoloration, ready to use. But here's what makes this absolute gold for preppers. You can use it for cooking, obviously, but you can also use it to make soap. You can use it as a base for medical salves. You can even use it as emergency lamp fuel. The cost is ridiculous. I bought a 3-pound box last week for $4.50. That's over 5,000 calories for less than $5. Show me a freeze-dried meal that gives you that value. I keep 30 pounds in my stockpile. And nobody, is fighting over lard during a shortage. When cooking oil shelves were completely empty in 2020, lard was sitting there untouched. The second item is going to sound absolutely crazy, but stay with me because this is legitimate survival nutrition. Canned fish roe. Fish eggs. I discovered this by accident 2 years ago in a European grocery store. When I researched what I'd bought, my mind was blown. Fish roe is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. We're talking omega-3 fatty acids off the charts, vitamin B12, vitamin D, selenium, and incredibly high in protein. It's shelf-stable for years. The cans are tiny, so storage is easy, and the nutrition you get per ounce is absolutely unmatched. During extended emergencies, most people's diet becomes seriously deficient in healthy fats. Rice has 0. Beans have almost none. Your brain starts to suffer. Your mood crashes. decision-making becomes harder. But fish roe is pure concentrated brain fuel. I ran an experiment on myself last winter. The first 5 days I ate standard prepper food, rice, beans, canned vegetables. By day 4 I was exhausted, moody, and couldn't focus. Days 6 through 10, I added 1 small can of fish roe every other day. The difference was dramatic. My energy came back. My mood stabilized. I could think clearly again. Most Americans have never even tried fish roe, which means during shortages it sits completely ignored. I keep about 50 small cans in my stockpile. Total cost was around $60. That's 50 doses of premium nutrition that will last for years, and nobody else even knows to look for it. The third item is something your great-grandparents knew about, but somehow we've completely forgotten. Dried whole corn kernels. Not popcorn, not cornmeal, whole dried field corn. This stuff is still sold at feed stores and some grocery stores, usually in the bulk section, and it's absurdly cheap. Whole dried corn, when stored properly, lasts 10 years or more. You can grind them into cornmeal for cornbread. You can soak them in lime water to make hominy, which is what ancient civilizations lived on. You can even sprout them for fresh food in winter. I was reading about the Dust Bowl, and researchers documented families surviving almost entirely on dried corn. They'd buy 50-pound sacks for almost nothing and make it last months. Last summer, I bought 50 pounds of dried corn for $18. That's thousands of calories for less than $20. Here's something most preppers don't realize. You can make corn tortillas from dried corn. You soak it in lime water overnight. This is called nixtamalization. Then you grind it and make fresh tortillas. In a long-term survival situation, being able to make bread without wheat is huge. During the last shortage when rice and beans were stripped from shelves, dried corn sat completely untouched at my local feed store. The fourth item is weird, expensive compared to some others on this list, but absolutely worth it. Black garlic. This is regular garlic that's been aged through a fermentation process. It turns black, becomes sweet, and here's the key: it's shelf-stable without refrigeration. Black garlic has double the antioxidants of regular garlic. It's been shown to support immune function, which in a crisis situation is absolutely critical. And unlike fresh garlic that goes bad in weeks, black garlic lasts for months at room temperature, up to a year if stored properly. During extended emergencies, your immune system takes a beating. Stress, poor sleep, limited variety in diet, your body becomes vulnerable. Black garlic is like an insurance policy. The flavor is incredible. It's sweet, almost like balsamic vinegar with a hint of garlic. You can eat it straight, which I do, or you can add it to rice, soups, anything really. It transforms bland food into something that actually tastes complex. Buy it in bulk online. I found a pound for about $40. That's expensive, sure, but we're talking about concentrated immune support that lasts for a year. I keep 2 pounds in my stockpile and nobody knows about black garlic. The fifth item is old school. And honestly, it sounds terrible until you understand what it really is. Hardtack. This is the dense, hard cracker that sailors and soldiers have relied on for 400 years. Hardtack is basically flour, water, and salt baked until it's rock hard. The result is something that literally lasts decades. Archaeologists have found Civil War hardtack that's over 150 years old and still technically edible. In a bug-out situation, where weight matters, hardtack provides maximum calories for minimum weight and space. Sailors figured this out centuries ago. Last year, I made a batch using an old Civil War recipe. That was 14 months ago. Last week, I pulled out a piece and tried it, still perfectly good. I soaked it in coffee for a few minutes, and it was actually pretty tasty. The cost is almost nothing if you make it yourself. I made 20 pounds for about $12 in ingredients. That's thousands of calories that will last until my grandkids are old enough to eat it. The sixth item is going to surprise you because most people don't even know this exists. Canned butter. Not freeze-dried butter powder. Actual real butter sealed in cans. This is primarily made in New Zealand and a few European countries. The shelf life is incredible. Unopened, it lasts 3 to 5 years at room temperature. Arctic explorers use canned butter because it survives extreme conditions, and butter is critical for survival nutrition. It's pure fat, which means pure energy. Most prepper food is dangerously low in fat. And that's a massive oversight. A guy I know tried living off his stockpile for a month. Standard stuff. Rice, beans, canned vegetables. By week 2, he was losing weight rapidly. He felt cold all the time. He couldn't think straight. His body was starving for fat. I told him about canned butter. Within days of adding it to his meals, everything changed. Energy came back. Body temperature regulated. The cost is higher than most items on this list. A 12-ounce can runs about $12 to $15, but in a crisis, that's worth its weight in gold. The 7th item sounds weird, but I'm dead serious. Canned cheese. Specifically, there are European brands that make real cheese sealed in cans, not cheese sauce, not processed cheese spread, real aged cheese. I found this at a specialty food store 2 years ago. When I opened it, I was shocked. It was real cheese, firm-aged, incredible flavor, and it had been sitting at room temperature for 6 months. The shelf life on these is usually 2 to 3 years, but honestly, cheese only gets better with age if stored properly. Cheese is calorie-dense and packed with protein, fat, and calcium. It's also a morale booster. When you've been eating bland rice for a week, a small piece of real cheese feels like luxury. I tested this during a camping trip last fall. We were out for 5 days eating freeze-dried meals. On day 3, I pulled out a can of cheese. The group's mood completely shifted. That's the psychological power of real food. The 8th item is something that's been hiding in plain sight for 100 years, but modern preppers have completely forgotten about it. Malted milk powder. This was invented in the late 1800s, specifically as survival food for infants and explorers. The original formula was designed to be shelf-stable, nutrient-dense, and easy to digest, and it still is. When stored in airtight containers, it lasts 3 to 5 years. You can drink it as a beverage for instant energy and comfort. You can add it to baking to boost nutrition. During World War II, soldiers carried malted milk tablets because they provided concentrated nutrition in a small package. The 9th item is something that's going to make vegetarians skip ahead. But for everyone else, listen up. Canned pork, not Spam, not Vienna sausages. I'm talking about actual chunks of pork shoulder or pork loin sealed in cans. This exists primarily in Eastern European and Asian markets, and it's absolutely incredible. The shelf life is 3 to 5 years. The meat is fully cooked, sealed in its own juices. You open the can and it's ready to eat. Most prepper protein sources are incomplete. Rice and beans together make complete protein, but it takes planning. Canned pork is complete protein ready to go. One can provide 30 to 40 grams of protein. The cost is reasonable. I found cans at a Russian grocery store for about $4 each. Compare that to freeze-dried meals at $12 to $15. During shortages, nobody's looking at the international aisle. While the American section is stripped bare, international foods sit untouched. The 10th item is something that's going to sound bizarre if you're not from New England, but trust me on this. Canned brown bread. This is a traditional New England food that comes in a can. It's a dark, dense bread made from whole wheat, rye, cornmeal, and molasses, and it's completely shelf-stable. The shelf life is typically 2 years, but I've heard stories of people eating cans that were 5 years old with no issues. Bread is comfort food. It's psychologically important. And most prepper stockpiles have no bread option except for hardtack or flour that requires baking. The 11th item is going to introduce you to a flavor you've probably never experienced. Fermented black beans. These are soybeans that have been fermented and salted. They come in jars or plastic packages primarily at Asian markets, and they are flavor bombs. A tiny amount like 1 tablespoon can transform an entire pot of bland rice into something that tastes complex and savory. They're incredibly concentrated, and because they're fermented and salted, they last for years. The 12th item is going to take you back to old-school survival food. Suet. This is the hard fat from around beef kidneys. Suet is almost pure fat, which means it's incredibly calorie-dense. 1 ounce provides about 240 calories. In a survival situation where you're burning calories like crazy, fat is critical. Historically, suet was what kept explorers alive. British sailors carried suet pudding. Arctic explorers packed suet because it doesn't freeze solid even in sub-zero temperatures. The 13th and final item is going to be controversial, but I don't care because this is the truth. Pure MSG, monosodium glutamate. MSG is a flavor enhancer. A tiny amount makes food taste significantly better. And in a survival situation where you're eating bland rice and beans for weeks, flavor is psychologically critical. MSG triggers the umami taste receptors in your mouth. When your food tastes good, you eat less because you feel satisfied faster. That means your stockpile lasts longer. These 13 foods represent a completely different approach to prepping. While everyone else fights over the same tired recommendations, you can quietly build a stockpile that nobody else is even looking at. Start small, add 1 item at a time, and remember that the best preparation happens before the crisis hits.